The gaming PC we're going to build this week is going to be going inside of the Geometric Future Model 5. Now this is a very interesting case. It does look a little bit more unique than what you typically find when it comes to fish tank aquarium style gaming PCs, because in this build we do have 5 included ARGB fans. Now they are not your typical ARGB fans. They are not 120 millimeters like you find in the majority of cases that come with fans. These are 140 millimeter fans, and the bottom 4 fans here are reversed. So they are intake fans, and we have the 1 exhaust fan here. And I'm sure if you're looking hard, you're probably wondering what is behind this yellow box right here. Well, that's actually supposed to be where you put your power supply. Now that design concept isn't anything new. I've built in smaller like MATX cases, like the Asus Prime case, some of the Johnsbow cases. They do a similar setup where you put your power supply up in the front here, and then your power cable runs through the back of the case, and then you will plug it in through the back. Now that's not new, but you don't typically see that in larger cases like this one. And right underneath where you put your power supply is this little ledge. Now this ledge is removable, but in their pictures and what I've read in their literature, this is supposed to be where you put like a Funko Pop or some kind of, accent piece. So like this Geometric Future yellow here would act as like the back plate while your Funko Pop is walking on Broadway, so you can take a whole lot of pictures of it. The funniest thing about the Model 5 is that this was actually one of the cases that I was considering for the Build Up Challenge Grand Finale PC for Season 1, the build that we had already put together. I went with a Fantex NV5 over this case, so it's always been a case that I've wanted to build in. I just never gotten the ability, and I'm so happy the Geometric Future reached out and they wanted to send me one, because I think it looks really cool, and I think the PC that I'm going to put in it is going to look absolutely phenomenal. But there is one thing that I'd love to show you, so give me a second, I'm gonna grab it real quick. So anytime a company reaches out to me and wants to send me anything, I always ask them if there's anything else that they would like for me to show to you guys. It does a couple things. First, it decreases the build cost for me, because I build a ton of computers on this channel, and it starts to add up in funds. And 2, it helps me show you guys new and interesting things that you either may be considering for builds, or you're just curious about and you want to see what it would look like inside of a gaming PC. And so I asked them if they wanted to send me anything, and they sent me this Eskimo Pro 36B. Now it's a 360 millimeter AIO. It looks really great, and I'd love to throw it in there. We just have a problem with it. The fans inside of here are 140 millimeter ARGB fans, but they're not the typical ARGB fans. They're not ARGB fans like these are ARGB fans. They are black fans, and they have a ring LED light around them. And I really love the way that these fans look. It's actually one of the most appealing things I find about the Geometric Future brand. Their fans look absolutely wonderful. Now, if you've watched anything that I do, you love that I love matching builds. I love my builds to come out looking as clean as possible. And I feel like throwing this inside of this PC with these fans versus the fans that come included, I feel like it's gonna look crazy. I may be crazy for feeling that way. And I really think it's crazy that they would send me this 360 millimeter cooler with this case when they make this cooler right here. This is the Eskimo Pro 42B, and it is a 420 millimeter AIO, and it has the exact same fans as the ones that come with this case. So obviously I had to go ahead and buy this one, and we'll go ahead and use the 36B somewhere down the road. Now, as far as cooling in our Model 5 here, this entire case is perforated aside from the glass on the side and the glass up front. The entire top is mesh, the entire bottom is mesh, the entire back is perforated, and the entire back panel here is 100% mesh. This thing will have no problem cooling your hardware. Another feature that I love that companies are getting into is the ability to take your back panel here where you mount down your graphics card, and you can rotate it so that you can have a vertical GPU instead of your normal plug it into the motherboard style GPU. So you can get a different look there. Now, they do sell hardware for you to, plug that all in and make sure you have your riser cable and everything, and then it mounts down to the bottom. But if you do that, you can't have these bottom fans here. And I would much rather have these 4 fans down here at the bottom than have a vertical GPU. But that's me. You might feel differently than I do, and that's okay. Now, before I get started building our PC in here, I did also want to show you that all of the panels on here are toolless. So if I wanted to get up into the top here, it just comes right off. The front and side glass panels, they all just pop off with ease, no screwdriver. And in the front here, if you remove this front glass, it actually is angled here. So that way, the geometric feature where you put your power supply, this yellow is part of the case. That's actually where your power button is, your USB-C, USB ports. So I like how they've kind of incorporated that into the build. Instead of it just being like, like a yellow box where you put your stuff, it's actually functional. Now, the last big flashy PC that we put together on the channel was in the Bow 400 case, and we used a RTX 5080 for that build. If you haven't seen it, at the end of this video, I'll put a card, you can go check it out, because it was really, really nice. Now, I didn't really find the performance from that system to be what I expected it to be. I expected way more from that system. So for this build, we're gonna switch it up. We're gonna go to a different side, a red side. I'll see you when we get back. I feel like my personal taste in computers is just forever evolving and changing all the time. I used to love like over the top tons of LEDs, lights everywhere, and all the lights to be moving. And nowadays, I don't really necessarily like a blacked out build, but I do like a build with minimal RGB, and this is about the right amount of RGB for me. You know, the thin LED around the fans, and then the RGB on the AIO and the RAM. And then you set it to this yellow and you make it kind of a dimmer yellow. And in my setup with the wood desk and all the black monitor and black keyboard and everything, this was just a very chill vibe PC. And honestly, I might just be getting old, but that's kind of my vibe these days. Also, two things before I start talking about my pros and cons with this case. First off, if you're considering a 9070 XT for your graphics card,
do that. As somebody who has played with the 5070 Ti and the 5080, I'm gonna tell you right now, the 9070 XT is one, a better value, and two, a monster performer. I'm talking like 160 steady FPS at God of War 1440p, maxed out everything. The gameplay you get from this GPU is unreal, and the 9700X is also pretty awesome CPU, especially paired with the 9070 XT. And also, if you are somebody who enjoys case reviews, PC builds, PC flipping especially, or hardware reviews, definitely make sure that you are subscribed to this channel, because I try to pump out a video for you guys every single week, trying to show you some pretty cool stuff, maybe give you some inspiration for your next PC build or your next PC flip. All right, so let's get into the case, because there are a few things that I would like to talk about as it pertains to the Geometric Future Model 5. Now, if you're gonna pick the yellow and black theme, just know that you're kind of limited to what RGB looks good in here. I mean, a black and yellow case with blue RGB doesn't really fit all that well, so you are kind of like, you have to do like a version of yellow when it comes to your RGB. So I would suggest, if you did get the black and yellow, either go blacked out or really enjoy the color yellow, which I like yellow, so this all worked out for me. But luckily they do have this case in all white and all black version, and they also have like a black and green version, and the black and green version did look pretty good. I actually considered the black and green one over the black and yellow, but I just like black and yellow. I think it looks really good together, like a bumblebee. Now let's start off with our pros list about this case, because this is a very nice case and I have a lot of good things to say about it. Starting off with the fact that you do get 5 140mm ARGB fans, and they move a ton of air. I mean, and because they're 140 millimeters and they're moving so much air and this very unrestricted airflow, this is a very quiet operating case. But once this PC starts ramping up and the fans start moving, it still stays very quiet, and it keeps everything inside of this case unbelievably cool. Now, because there is a 420mm AIO for the CPU here, and it's not the hottest CPU you're ever gonna find, one, you have so much overclock potential when it comes to this CPU, because the max temperature that this CPU ever hit at 100% load was 59 degrees, which is unbelievable. I've only ever seen that with like the last PC flip I did, where we had a 10700F and we put a push-pull 360mm AIO on it, and I think it only ever hit like 47 degrees, which was unbelievable. But this AIO with that CPU, you just tons of cooling potential. Now, I know that most people are gonna wanna go for like a 9800X3D, 9950X3D, and those get much hotter. You're gonna have absolutely no problem cooling those CPUs with a 420mm AIO, especially with these huge 140mm fans on it. Now, with the CPU temperature being so low, the graphics card temperature will also impress you. 61 degrees Celsius was the max temperature that this GPU hit during full load gameplay. I mean, it was really crazy to see just how cool this graphics card was staying and getting unbelievable frames in some extremely difficult games. Now, it is able to get that kind of crazy airflow because the entire back here is perforated. The back of the case, the top of the case, underneath the case, everything is completely perforated, so that you just get tons of airflow just pumping into this thing, keeping everything extremely cold. But there is a con to having all of this openness. Not every bit of this case has dust filters. You will find a dust filter down here at the bottom, but you're not gonna see one in the back of the case. And we have that 140mm fan right down here at the bottom. So it is drawing in fresh air, and it's very, very cold air, and it's pumping a lot of air through that fan, but there is no dust filter behind it. So whatever is coming into the case is just pure, unrestricted, not filtered air. Now, there isn't a dust filter on the top, but that doesn't really matter because because you're gonna be using the top for exhaust anyways. You're not really gonna see a whole lot of dust build up here. And the power supply area also has no dust filter because it is also on this back. So you're not gonna get a lot of dust filters back there. Now, I would say that they should add them, but because the perforation, here, I'll show you, because the perforation on the back here is so small, adding another layer of restriction to that is only gonna hinder airflow. So you gotta go into it knowing that you're gonna get a little bit of dust inside your case. So just maybe invest in like a small air blower. Don't get canned air, just get an electric blower. They're real cheap and you can use them forever. Now the Model 5 here, it does draw inspiration from like those MATX cases. They're all over the place where the power supply is mounted up front. There is a cable that comes included with the case that plugs into your power supply. It runs through the back and then you can connect your cable to the back of the PC, connecting it to the wall to give power to your system. Now, because of that, the power supply jack is always at the top, and if you are somebody who's crazy about your cable management, this may bother you, especially if you keep your PC at like an angle instead of it being like flush against the wall. You would see this cable. It's just something to point out. It doesn't bother me at all, but I know that there are some people who are really crazy about cable management. And about that cable management, I am gonna show you the back of this case here in a minute. Don't come for me. I'm not the best at cable management, and I didn't really spend like any time on cable managing this system. So if you don't like how I cable managed, I don't either. I'm right there with you. But we are talking about the back here, so I did want to touch on the fact that you can actually take the PCIe slot covers and you can rotate it so that you can run a vertically mounted GPU, but just know that if you do that, you have to get rid of these bottom fans because they will not fit with a riser cable. Now, some people don't mind that. Some people would like to see the vertical mounted GPU more than having these bottom fans, but I feel like with this graphics card, having these bottom 3 fans and having the ability to cool this GPU more, which gives us the possibility of overclocking this GPU like crazy because it doesn't get hot because it's got so much air movement inside this case. I feel like this is the better way to go about it, but those are decisions that you get to make, not me. Because I already made my decision and I think it looks pretty good. All right, so here's something that you should definitely pay attention to because I didn't do a very good job of paying attention to this and I should have. There is actually a sticker that comes attached to the top of your case that says, do not take this off like this and keep pulling up because it will bend the front of this metal. You have to pull it back and then you can pull it off. Now, I didn't pay attention and it is slightly bent, not a lot. I bent it back a little bit and there's absolutely no problem. You can barely tell when it's on, but if you do buy this case, please be careful. Just pay attention because I didn't, and yeah, it could have been way worse. Now, when it comes to the build quality of this case, it's actually pretty good. You get some pretty thick metal here. The panels that you remove, these are all pretty thin, but you can still feel that they are of very good quality, a little thicker than what you find on the majority of, say, cheaper cases. Now, there was one thing that I thought was a little strange, is that they have this bar here, right? And when you remove the glass, the bar just sits there, and I didn't really like it sitting there, so I had taken it off. And when you do that, there's a whole lot of flex when it comes to the top here. You can actually see this thing move. So this bar is actually there for, I believe, structural support of some kind, because when you added it back on, there is still a little bit of a flex, but it's not a lot, it's not overpowering. Now, when you have the glass on the front and the sides here, that's helped stabilize this even more. You're not gonna have an issue, but it is something to focus on. Don't really remove that bar unless you think you really need to, because I did notice that it definitely bends a whole lot more if you get rid of that. All right, so now we're gonna show you my biggest concern with this case. Like I said, don't judge my cable management. I know it's not great. It is way too difficult to put your power supply into this case. There is no space down here for anything else. In order to get a full-size power supply into this PC case, I had to plug all the cables up and route each one of them one by one through this tiny little hole here before I could even think about putting the power supply into the top of the case. Now, even still, if I wanted to add anything to this PC, like say I had 2 SATA drives that I wanted to add in here, you couldn't get more cables through this hole. I mean, it is stuffed packed full. And I didn't use any of the SATA adapters. There's more PCIe Express I could have used. This is like, this is the one thing that I disliked the most about this case, and it's just this power supply area. Now, I'm not saying they had a whole lot of options. If this is the design they wanted to go with, then I mean, this is really the best that you could come up with, because they do have this fan down here at the bottom. It's not like you could have run the cables into the fan or into the actual case. You'd have seen them and hated that look. So this is pretty much all you're left with. But if you do want to buy one of these cases, I would get a small form factor power supply. You got to get a smaller power supply, because this was not fun. And on top of the fact that it is difficult to get the power supply in, there is not a lot of room for cable management. I mean, this is a pretty shallow environment. Now, it is possible I can get the back panel on just fine, but it is something to know that you're gonna have a more difficult time cable managing, because there's no space. Now let me hit you with another pro. This case, as of recording this video, is actually only $150, and $150 for a case that is, you know, a pretty decent quality, and you get 5 included 140mm fans, and you get a look that's a little different than everyone else's Y70 Touch Infinite. I think that that's a pretty good value for a very nice case. I definitely think that this is worth the $150. I mean, it's not overpriced, and you get something that looks pretty cool. At least it's different. For 2 weeks I've been using this system, and I just get, it's very, like I said earlier, it's just a chill, it's a chill vibe. The dimmer LEDs is just nice. It's nice dark with the little yellow. Very relaxing. Now, if I had to give this case like a 1 out of 10 rating, I'd probably give it a solid 7.2. I think a 7.2 is about the right rating out of a 1 out of 10. I know that's like, there's no way to like gauge that, but I mean, honestly, it's great. It has some flaws, but for $150, the flaws don't outweigh the price and what you get for that money. So I would definitely say that this is worth the $150, 7.2 rating out of 10. Now, I hope you guys had a little bit of fun putting this system together with me, because I had an absolute blast putting it together with you. And if you did find a little bit of enjoyment out of this video, please consider hitting the subscribe button, as well as smashing that like button. It helps my little tiny channel move on and get seen by more people and grow on and do big bad YouTube things. Now, for everyone who did sign up for the PC Rehab YouTube channel membership program, I do appreciate every single one of you guys, and your continued support of the channel means the world to me. And for everyone else, I hope that no matter where you are in the world, you are having the most fantastic day, and I'm going to see you right here for the next video.